Builder! What is this? This is the Colbor CL100, a 100-watt bicolor cob LED light. Cost approximately $200. You can purchase an optional V-mount battery accessory. It's got a full Bowens mount for all your Bowen modifiers. 5% is the lowest dimming it can go. Has 3 fan modes: smart, quiet, and full. Do I recommend this? If you are a wedding filmmaker on a budget, yes, this costs much cheaper than most bicolor cobs in this power range, and with the battery attachment, you are able to more or less match a tungsten color reception or a daylight color reception. Narrative and YouTube filmmakers? It depends. If you're rarely ever using tungsten colors, you may as well just get a much more powerful daylight LED and use a gel in those rare cases. Done! Roll that intro! Hey, what's going on, everybody? You're watching Too Long Didn't Read Filmmaker, where the answers comes first, the reasons come last, but we're constantly and always still learning. So today we're going to find out whether or not the Colbor CL100, a bicolored cob LED, is going to be the right solution for you and your overall filmmaking kit. And I want to thank Colbor for sending me out this pre-production unit so I can provide you with my review today. For approximately $200, you get the light, reflector, a wireless remote, and all of it fits into this very nice carrying case. Now, Colbor also has an optional V-mount battery option that you can latch onto your light stands with a proprietary D-tap to 3-pin XLR locking cable should you need to be completely portable. The CL100 is primarily made of plastic with a full-size Bowens mount and some basic buttons in the back. This pre-production is missing the center knob, and I have let Colbor know about it. The light is very easy to operate. The center knob basically handles your color temperature as well as dimming. Simply press the knob down to switch between the two. Now, for those that are curious, the lowest you can dim this light is 5%. The CL100 does have some basic lighting effects should you need it, but it's nothing to write home about. There are also 3 fan modes. The smart mode will ramp the fan up slowly depending on the temperature, and the quiet mode will kind of stay at a consistent mid setting. Now, the third fan mode is if you hold the turbo button, they say you're actually going to get 120% output. And yeah, it does get a little bit brighter, but if the fan is blowing that loudly, I don't really know how useful this is for a specific shot, but it is there if you need it. Without further ado, let's get to the light tests. Remember, you can actually compare all my results against other lights at TLDRfilmmaker.com. When it comes to the light output, because this is a bicolor light, we don't see a full 100 watt of power for each color. Instead, we're looking at numbers kind of similar to a very powerful 60 watt class LED chip. Again, you can see how these numbers compare to other cob LEDs I've tested at my website at TLDRfilmmaker.com. For the color quality test, I am dialing in the Kelvin instead of doing a custom white balance, so we can actually see how well the light's Kelvin numbers matches a camera's. The daylight LEDs are looking pretty standard from what we see in this budget range. We have a slight magenta shift overall, while the colors are more or less hitting their target areas. With tungsten, we see the normal problems with a budget tungsten LED. Generally, we see the reds and the skin tones veering off towards yellow, which will need to be corrected in post if the more yellow look doesn't fit your style for the shot. Battery life with a 190 watt-hour V-mount battery is right on par at approximately 2 hours of battery life. So what's the bottom line here? Is the CL100 something you should be thinking about for your overall filmmaking kit? Now, there's a couple things that is going to make me say it kind of depends. Number one, Colbor is a newer company. I've never heard of them before, and they really only have 2 lights that I'm aware of, which is a little pocket light as well as this CL100 bicolor cob. And the next thing is they're going after the basically the bicolor cob market that is starting to really kind of show up. We've seen Godox do it, we've seen Aperture do it with the 100X, and I feel like the CL100 is essentially going after the 100X at a discount price of, you basically save about $150. So one thing you need to ask yourself is, do you actually need a bicolored cob LED? Do you find yourself shooting in tungsten situations a lot? And if the answer is no, then I would say, then you probably don't really need a bicolored cob LED. You might as well just get the daylight one. And in the rare moments that you do need to go to tungsten, you can just slap a gel on it and be on your merry way. And that's simply because when you look at bicolored LEDs in general, you're kind of not getting the full power that the chip can give. And unless you're truly going between daylight and tungsten 50-50 on production all the time, then you might want to think about investing in a bicolored light. But if you're saying, well, I actually lean more towards tungsten 90% of the time or daylight, then it doesn't necessarily make sense to get a bicolor cob LED, in my opinion, because you'd rather have more output to play with depending on your current lighting situations. But that being said, I could see how this would be useful as kind of a background light on a narrative film shoot, because I love the idea of purposely messing with my white balance to cause things to look more orange or to cause things to look more blue. And depending on how I'm lighting the subject, my background can be the opposite, and therefore I can actually get some nice color contrast, as you see here that I employed this idea on Maximilian. So that's a couple ways to think about it. In terms of, let's say, YouTubers, again, it depends. If you're in such a small little environment like this, you probably don't want that fan going. And the fact that the fan has a smart option, which is probably the best in terms of trying to get that fan low enough in terms of sound. But then once you get up to the full speed, well, then, it depends. So I would say for a YouTube situation, probably not, unless you have a very large studio space where you can use that light off in a distance, whether it's for your background, your hair light. But as a key light, I would say there are better options out there. Last but not least, for people that might think about, well, how about weddings? I actually think that this might actually be pretty good for weddings because, again, if you are in a candlelit area, let's say, then you can use the tungsten to kind of match what's going on. Even if it's not perfect, at least it'll get you there. And then, of course, you can use daylight if you want to hit people with that color contrast and really separate the bride and groom from whatever it is that you're shooting. And the only reason I say that wedding filmmakers might benefit from this is because you're essentially kind of getting a Godox SL60 in the tungsten realm and in the daylight realm mashed together, and it's much cheaper because if you're going to compare it against the bicolored the ML60 bicolor, this is going to be way more powerful and much cheaper, especially with that V-mount battery attachment at 2 hours per 190 watt hours. I think as a wedding filmmaker, this might be a nice little portable, powerful bicolored setup should you need it. Because again, like I said, in a reception, it's anybody's guess if they're going to be going for moodier orange tungsten lighting or if they're just going to be daylight. So I think wedding filmmakers might actually have the most benefit from this light. And hey, that is it for this week, everybody. If this video has made all the influence in your purchasing decisions, I would truly appreciate it if you check out my Amazon affiliate links down below. And again, that costs nothing extra to you, just gives me a little compensation so I can continue making videos like this for you. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, go ahead and leave it down below. I will get to them as fast as I can. And until then, like, subscribe, and share, and I'll see you guys in the next one.